Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of, I was about to say Design Recharge. I should just change it back. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. We're going forward with Creatives Ignite. But it used to be called Design Recharge. And a lot of times we have a lot of designers, a lot of illustrators, a lot of people who are creatives, but it's not just designers. And Ryan is one of those. She teaches design. She is a designer, but she's also, maybe you would even um, say more of you're an artist and you're a printmaker,
Yeah.
and there's all these other things. And I think that we aren't just one thing. That's what brings us to design, that we can do a lot of other things. So Ryan
Yeah.
Kough is here, and I am excited to have you on. It's been a long time coming, and you're part of the series which we're doing during this month, and we're doing it a couple other months during the year, but this month we're doing the inspiration series. We did some in February, I think. What I like about this is that I have people who I really like their work, and or the what they're about, and then they're telling me what has kind of shaped them. It could be an experience, so I think all of us could do this exercise. I think this would be a pretty powerful
Mhm.
exercise for everybody. And Ryan, you were telling me about, you had done this, you've been putting images together every year, like what was the big thing this year. And I think that's a really
Mhm.
neat way to think about doing an exercise like this. Why did you pull things together like that? And then I want you to tell me who you are, where you are, and what you do. But why did you
Yeah.
start collecting images like that?
So, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get to talk to you and to also talk to those that are joining us today, and hopefully inspire everyone. I have started documenting. Anyone that knows me, I take a lot of photos. I take photos of the food that I'm eating. I take photos of friends. From the first day of my teaching career, I have taken photos of teaching and students in the classroom. I have photos of my last day of class from every class I've ever taught over the last three institutions that I've been at. So I tell my students one day I'm going to print them all, and they're all going to look very young, and I'm going to slowly get older as I go, because it's now been I've been at my current institution for 10 years, and at Purdue and Penn State prior. So over the years, I'm going to keep getting older, and they're going to keep getting younger. But yeah, I think the documentation of life is such an important thing that our photos live in our phones now. We don't sit in our living rooms and flip through photo albums anymore. Um, I think that we've lost this feeling of nostalgia, and
Mm.
also our ability to sit down and experience and reflect, to really have the opportunity to pause and reflect and really be excited about what we've been able to accomplish.
So, all right. So then tell them a little bit about who you are and your kind of
Okay.
history of your like design career or your creative
Yes.
career. Like what brought you into design, and then what brought you into teaching?
Yeah. So my name's Ryan Coe. I'm currently joining you from Huntington, Pennsylvania, actually my hometown. I grew up in this area, and at the time, Juniata College did not have a design program or even the integrated media arts program that I currently oversee. And I went to college at a 2 year program in Pittsburgh, did my associate's degree, worked for a couple of years, moved a bunch of different places, ended up doing my Bachelor of Fine Arts at Savannah College of Art and Design. While I was in Savannah, I spent a couple of years doing publishing, and was working in, I would say, tourism and publishing. So magazines that were focused on Visit Savannah, Visit Hilton Head, Bluffton, menus, circulations that would encourage people to eat at local restaurants. I would say that was the beginning of my design work, that I really learned the importance of working in a team environment and a team setting. And then after that, I did my Master's of Fine Arts at Purdue University.
Why did you decide to
Yeah.
go do your master's?
So while I was in my undergraduate program, I had several teachers that I loved. Um, Several of them have remained lifelong friends, and I've stayed in touch with them. Some of them are still in the academic world, and some of them are now working at other types of businesses and institutions. But I think I was inspired by some of the experiences that I had as a student. And during my time, so once I graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design, I got the position that I told all of my professors I wanted was my first job, and I got it. And so I started working as the art director at the Purdue Alumni Association. And I actually have this in my slides that I'm going to share today. So I'll give you a preview through verbal, but I am going to share some images from this. But it was a really big step. I told my professors in one of my final portfolio classes, John Waters was my professor, and he said to everyone, what job do you want when you graduate? And everyone was like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I said, I want to be an art director. And I just had this moment of like, I'm going to say it, and it may never happen. The internal doubt, right? The reality that we sometimes wish for things and don't know how are we going to get there.
Well, and sometimes we don't even know what it means to be. So,
Yeah.
what was being the art director? What did that mean to you?
Yeah, so I think I was inspired by this idea of not only working on the publications, but also having a team of people to support me and to be working in a creative environment. Some of the magazines that I worked for in Savannah, South Magazine, top of the line, excellent publication, very well designed. They've done a great job over the years of hiring students. I worked with them for a short period of time while I was a student. And I think that environment really pushed me to consider what I could do if I were to continue working either in publishing or in a design environment. And so I was really inspired by this idea of not only doing the design work, but somehow facilitating and implementing deadlines and, right, the business side,
And
right?
it wasn't all alone because so many of us we love the interaction in the classroom
Yeah,
and getting feedback, and it's like you're brainstorming and you're doing that, but then you go
yeah.
to work and you're like, I'm alone.
So I have lots of slides, and I think I should
Oh, so well, let me
share
ask you this
those.
one question then.
Yes,
So,
yes. Go ahead.
because we're going to talk about two things, but one thing I want to touch on before we get into your slides, and then I want to ask you one other question. But
Yeah,
how in this? Because I don't know if there were some events that happened. Because really, this inspiration in action. There's an
hmm,
in and then a space and then action, not inaction, like no
yeah,
spaces anyway. But in that, when what happened, or and maybe this you can be like, this is in the slide, but what happened to
yeah,
help you want to start thinking of design as for social activism, right? What
yes. So
is it in the
that's definitely
slides?
in the slides. Yes,
All right, so then
and
go ahead.
with good visuals because we're
Okay,
visual.
I good.
But yeah, so yeah, it's in the slides. So I don't
Okay,
want
well then
to. I
let
don't
me
want
ask you this then. The other
to.
thing
Okay, go.
we're going to talk about was about being creative. And I think this is everywhere. I know Amy is a lonely only at a marketing team in North Carolina. She does everything. And there's all of this pressure of being a creative, but also having to juggle the business stuff, having to know this, having to be an illustrator and make her illustrations better. And now she needs to make it look retro. And now she needs to be great with typography. And now it's social media, it's everything. And I want to just make sure that you have a at
Yeah,
least an entry. Maybe this is a good entry into the thing, but what is being creative under pressure mean to you, and how do you
yeah,
avoid burning out?
yeah. So I think a lot of what you just asked is it's in the slides, but it's also part of this conversation that I have been actively having over the last 4 years. So burnout, grind culture. My job as art director at the Alumni Association, I was the only
Lonely only.
And when I interviewed, I didn't ask the right questions. I had a great experience at that job. I still am in contact with some of my colleagues that I worked with there. But as creatives, right, I wasn't in an environment that I was working with lots of other folks. And so we had an editor, we had some writers, but design wise and visual content wise, I was the only. And so the challenge that I faced in that environment was there is a lack of understanding of how much time it takes to do something. And I believe that we all have our own understanding of what we want something to look like. And so it was really challenging towards the end of my time there to leave a position that I really wanted to be at, but also to decide I really wanted to investigate teaching. And so that's the segue I will share in the slides.
Okay.
All right, so I have a question for everyone today, and I did share this with Diane in advance. But one of the things that I've thought a lot about recently is this act of being patient and the reality that it's really hard, especially now that we're used to things getting to us that day, things being delivered, something showing up immediately, like everything is very different. And so many of the things that I will share with you today are purposeful decisions in my life to slow down. And so I wanted to ask everyone, where's your patience? I shared with Diane, I have two children, and this is something that I very commonly and frequently ask my children. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And so this now, not only as a parent, as a teacher, as an educator, as a professional, I think is something that's become really important in my life. And so we're going to start out. I'm sure you can guess the only redhead in this image is me.
I think I know which
And
one is
so
you.
this was, not to age myself, this was my second grade classroom that is now, and this is a full circle patience moment, it is now the Juniata College Ceramic Studio. So the college that I'm now teaching at has purchased my classroom, has purchased my elementary school and has turned it into a business incubator and a whole bunch of other cool things. And so this image is a good example. And then the next, I'm going to skip through a bunch of stuff because I want to get us through the story. But the reason I share this is that inner child. So during this time and in the years following this, my report cards, which I recently found one, would frequently say, Ryan is daydreaming. Ryan is distracted. Ryan is unable to focus on what we're doing. And so I look back at that and think that was a sign, right? Like I wasn't engaged with the content. And so as a parent now, I have lots of questions about what was happening at that time. But I also think that some of those things we don't fully understand until we are patient and we look back and think. And
Do
so
do you think that
we're
that is a negative though? Because now I'm like,
no,
wow, what a great, like since
yeah,
second grade, you've been like,
yes.
that's on your resume. Like she's
So now
imaginative.
yes, so now I'm a professional daydreamer and I get paid to daydream professionally. And I would encourage you all to do that with me. So we're going to skip some pivotal stuff and I'm going to try to run through this pretty quickly. These are some of the layouts from my Purdue alumni time. Super great experience. I got the title of art director. It's exactly what I wanted to do. I learned a lot during that position. And now many of my classes that I teach are focused on encouraging my students to ask the right questions when they're interviewing.
Mm.
2011, I was invited to participate in a weekend printing experience at the Hamilton Wood Type Museum. If you ever get a chance to go, please go. This was the beginning of me learning to play.
Mm.
Also, the beginning of me starting graduate school. So I was working full time, doing graduate classes part time. Some of the work that was done during that time was very experimental. This is actually a print of everyone's ghost print. So everyone was
Oh,
done printing, and I ran through the studio and printed a copy of everybody else's text. which is now
Beautiful.
inspiring much of the work that I'm currently doing. So it's pretty cool to, as I mentioned at the beginning, to look back. I went back in 2012 for 2 weeks to do a residency, to print specimen sheets, and to help kind of archive the typography that was
Hmm.
in the cases. I thought I was going to get through a whole room. I think I got through maybe 5 or 6 cases out of one entire cabinet. So it's a very long process. In 2012, and this is part of what has inspired my teaching, I was a camper at Camp Firebelly, which is at the Firebelly Design Studios in Chicago. And that experience was super pivotal. We worked on a few projects with local nonprofits and worked on design materials for this was a zine that was part of a gallery installation. These were all team projects. My experience and work.
What was that something you had to apply for? Like it was also like a
Yes.
residency thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're
Yeah.
not
So
in
this
grad school
was,
yet. You're still working and you're just applying.
no, I was in grad school at this
Okay, so
point.
you're okay, great.
Yeah. And so I'm in grad school. I'm applying. I attend Camp Firebelly. We work on stuff with Matthew Hoffman and the You're Beautiful group. This is all team driven, but everyone made a letter. We did some design work. Jump ahead later that year, I went back to SCAD, but this time as a participant in a conference. And the fun thing about this, I was able to engage with people that do design, social design, and really amazing forms of design at a really high level, but as a stakeholder in the process of this creative conversation. So this was a really important. This definitely, these two experiences shaped everything that I'm currently doing. Um, and so going out into the community at that experience was a big part of it. We do that now in my classroom environment. Jump ahead, this is some grad work. So fun thing about my own work, when I'm told no, or when I have access to something but I don't have access to all of it, that's when I make my best work. And so this project, this concept of use what you have, I was in a graduate program. We did have a letterpress on campus. I was not allowed to use it.
Ooh.
And so I ended up doing laser cut wood type, laser cut typography on cardboard. And I went to the printmaking studio, and that professor was very supportive. I ended up making a whole bunch of really cool prints. This was the wood type. So say what you mean what you say.
Mm.
The industrial design faculty were really excited about the work that I was doing. And so this was the beginning of me shaping this sense of community in
Mm.
different places, meaning not only am I here for visual communication design, but I'm going to go out and have conversations with folks in other departments and areas. I also branched out and did some graduate research. I frequently rode my bike to campus, and there were several folks that were hit either
Mm.
by cars, vehicles, city bus, even while they were riding in spaces that were meant to be safe bicycle lanes. And so I worked on this, had no idea if anybody would ever actually pick this up. I did have conversations at that time with public safety and different offices. And jump ahead, Martin, who was a colleague of mine in one of my experiences on campus when I was working full time as the art director, tweeted and said, I think you made a difference. They're now painting the lines that you write. Like this project that I had gone to them and had these conversations, had no idea if anything would come out of it. And so this was the beginning of me realizing sometimes if you speak, people do hear you. And so not being scared to go in and have these conversations.
Mm.
I joined in 2013. I traveled to AIGA West Michigan and participated in a weekend blitz. Super amazing experience because I was working with other design professionals. I was a full-time graduate student at the time, also expecting my first child. And so this experience of working Friday, Saturday, and then presenting on Sunday. Doing something quick that felt important was a really
Mm.
good experience. And then some of my graduate research. So I shared this primarily because I think we all have the power, based on our own experiences, to understand that sometimes things don't exist the way that they should or could.
Mm.
And so while I was expecting my daughter, I quickly realized all of these things that I'm accessing are because I have a cell phone and internet. But what about people that don't have a cell phone and internet? And so I worked on the Well Baby Toolkit, and worked with the IRB, interviewed patients and doctors, and
What
had
is
a really long,
IRB?
the Institutional Review Board.
Oh.
So if you're working, depending on who you're interviewing, you have to get special approval and make sure that you're doing proper practices. And so it was a very long and tedious process. It took, I believe, about a year and a half for me to get approval to do the work, and then actually went through and completed the work. Um, and then after working on this project, I moved back to Pennsylvania. And so um, I had a baby, moved to Pennsylvania, came back to my hometown, had a bit of a shift, right? Not knowing exactly what would be coming next. And I was just talking to you this morning about this idea of like driving and the radio station goes out of range.
Mhm.
And there's a period of time where you're not exactly sure what's coming next, but you check the next station and you go to the next thing. And
Mhm.
so that idea for me of the patience that it took during this time, but also the reality that the importance and the power of community was already here. So I joined the Huntington Arts Council. I served on the board. I started doing design work for them, and also had a gallery show of work that no one in Huntington County had ever seen. And so I shared some of the work that I did while I was away. I worked on this exhibition welcome packet. I really, as an artist that was showing my work, had a lot of questions, and there were too many emails and phone calls and
Mm.
conversations to get those questions answered. And so I felt like this was something that I could contribute to this organization that would support other professional artists coming in.
That sounds like an
Um,
awesome tool.
yes, it was fun. And also, now as an artist that is showing work in other places, it's also helped me think about questions that I might have. I started doing local revitalization work and community work, which ended up becoming a fully functioning 501(c)(3). So I founded Re-Envision Huntington. Much of the work that I was doing when visiting Savannah for the Dew Fronts, when going to Chicago for Campfire Belly, when going to West Michigan, really inspired the work that I started doing whenever I came back to my community. And the super fun thing was that my daughter was now old enough to come and participate and to get the paperwork in the mail. Like, we are a 501(c)(3. We can now accept donations and do some really cool and important work. The first year that we were in place, we started a community food garden. We were recognized as the top women-owned businesses to follow. And this wasn't even my full-time work. So at the time, I was teaching at Penn State and at Juniata College. I was doing a lot of things. And I mentioned to you before we started recording that putting these slides together really genuinely has made me think, how did I actually accomplish all of this in a very
Right.
short amount of time?
And how again, this is that being creative under pressure to some extent is how did you
Yeah,
find time to get with these other women and say, hey, let's do this? I do see the
yeah,
art director coming in, like, hey, we need
yeah,
to do this where I can't do it alone.
yeah.
Um,
So this article was actually other women within my community that were highlighted as Robin is a local attorney and Angie runs a candle company. And so, yes, this sense of community and going through these experiences, I think, really pushed me to keep doing things that were exciting and inspiring. during that time, this is a really fun, really big pivot. I was contacted by a local business owner that is an umpteenth generation owner of the local newspaper. And he said, "Hey, I understand that you're into doing letterpress. I have this press, and would you be interested in purchasing it from me? I just need it out of my garage." And immediately I'm like, yes, this is in Huntington. So if any of you are not aware, a Vandercook letterpress weighs, I don't know, somewhere around 1,000 pounds. They're very heavy. They're very expensive to move. And it's really hard to find people with equipment to move them. And so I happened to be living at the time on a farm with lots of storage space. I had access to a skid loader and pallets and all of the things. And so this reality that go back to the gallery show, someone realizes I'm in the paper, I'm doing this work, I'm sharing my work locally. It was in disarray. I will say from this image to the next couple, you'll see it took a lot of work. And from 2016 to 2022, it sat. And so I did have it, but it wasn't being used. And this is where the patience comes in. So when I got the press, the paper that was on the cylinder was beautiful. You could see all of these great things that were printed at the newspaper. The handle that you used to turn the cylinder was broken. Part of the press was in really bad shape. And so I started to communicate with people that I knew that had access to tools or might know the letterpress story that could help me to figure out what's missing. At that time, I was still doing these public workshops and engaging with the community on campus.
Were they
I was
doing
researching.
the workshops
Go
were
ahead.
on all different kinds of things, or were
Yeah.
they okay? So
So the
you're
workshops were printmaking and were usually focused on really easy methods that you could do at home. And so some of the work that I'm currently doing with letterpress and printmaking workshops is really similar to what I was doing back then. But the fun thing about this, many of these conversations with the folks that are blurry ended up really inspiring me to keep doing some of the things that I'm doing now. And this is 5 to 10 years ago.
wow. So wait, I have a
Um,
question. So you're doing
yeah,
these, this is your 501c that you're doing these workshops
no,
with?
so
That was the
no, this is at
garden.
the yeah, this is at the Arts Council. So I'm still serving on the local board and doing these workshops. And the great thing about them were I would host the workshops and then it would become a donation to the Arts Council so that they could do awards for local youth to get awards for their artwork. So it was this really great, it was a great experience for me as an artist coming back to Huntington, but also a really important,
Mm.
leading up to our pandemic years, which we
Mhm.
all know about. Um, this was the kind of the fuel that I needed to get me through some of these next couple of years, the
And
patience years.
what else were you doing at the time? So you're still running the 501c, the gardening or the
Yes.
and then you're also teaching at two institutions.
At this time, I was only teaching at Juniata.
Okay,
So um, in
but you're building a
it was
program.
yeah. So in 2014, I started teaching at Juniata adjunct, and then I started here what we call full time, part time, which full time teaching but part time benefits.
Mm.
And then I, at this point, I was teaching full time in 2017. And then I'm sharing the research because this, for me, I think has been really interesting now that I'm putting all of the puzzle pieces together. Not only was I doing the work in the community, a lot of work in the community, but I was also focusing my curriculum on civically driven curriculum in this sustainable community partnerships. So the idea that I wanted my students not to design a brochure for some band that doesn't exist. I did
Mm.
all of those things and nothing against doing that, but I really wanted them from their first year of their college experience
Mm.
to be in the community. And so I'm going to keep
Do
going.
you
So we
think
still
you
have,
were driven because you were from there to make to give some of those students a chance to have something that you didn't have?
So I don't know that I was driven because of being from here. I think coming back here with all of this knowledge and not using it
Mm,
felt like a disservice to my community.
mm,
So like that idea of I know all of these things and I want to talk to all of the people and figure out who's in charge of this thing and who's doing
mm,
this and why is this vacant lot run down? Can we give money for someone to revitalize this space? And much of the work that we have done with the nonprofit, with the board and with the folks that have volunteered, has been raising money and directly giving 100% of the money that we've raised back to doing revitalization. And so um, the work that I was doing both at Juniata at the time and through the nonprofit was really focused on the community, not only Huntington, but outside surrounding communities. And so this is another part of this patience that I think, I started to present at conferences and I was very intimidated. Um, Not that I didn't think that the work was important, but I think that I was concerned that what I came to share wasn't as important as something that someone else was there to share. And so
oh,
I started presenting about this sustainability and community partnerships. As I started to talk with other design academics, I realized this is a small group of faculty. It's a very hard thing to do, and I'm well aware of that. I'm the only design educator on campus at Juniata. And so then I submitted my stuff for tenure. And this was a big
in what year?
eye-opening in
2019?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I had been at the college from 2014 to 2019. Some of those years counted towards my tenure. Some of them were fixed term and adjunct years.
Mm.
And so this was a big year that I kind of had to pause and evaluate what have I done and kind of for those that work in an academic setting, am I worthy of receiving tenure? Or is this going to be the year that I figure out I need to be doing something else?
And what is
Um,
full-time teaching there? Because we talked about this a little bit before. Like, how
yeah,
many classes are
yeah.
you
So,
teaching? Sometimes private schools, you have to have, I know Will's here. He
yes,
taught at a private school in Nebraska. It's like 18 classes,
yeah,
or it feels like it that. How many
yeah.
are you typically teaching a semester?
So at Juniata, we are a teaching institution. I have been at two R1 research institutions, Penn State and Purdue. And I've also attended a private art school that was NASAT accredited, right?
Hmm?
All of the separate things. So Juniata, we have a Bachelor of Arts, and we when I started here, the integrated media arts program was interdisciplinary between IT, communication, English, studio art, art history, and then a couple other areas that would contribute as needed. And so, jump ahead to 2018, they did a national search for a tenure track position. At that time, I was teaching 5 classes in the fall and 5 classes in the spring. Um,
And these
my
are
second
studio
child,
classes, so they're
these
two or
are studio
six
classes.
six
Yeah.
hours a week. You're in class for each of those
Yes.
classes. Okay.
Yes. And so, I don't
Mm.
want to miss a big part of this discussion, but I don't have him in these slides, but somewhere between here and here, I interviewed for my national search position, right? The position that I was currently in, but was also interviewing for. I wrote an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education about being an inside candidate. For those of you that might go through that experience, it is very challenging. I, at the time, was also expecting my second child, um, and chose to keep that private for as long as I possibly could, just out of the reality that I didn't want to have any stress of being an expectant mother, starting in the tenure track,
Sure.
um, unfortunate reality of the world that we still live in. And so in 2019, I was still doing a lot of research about demystifying this concept of collaboration, working in the community, submitting my tenure stuff. And then in 2020, I chose not to put images on the slide, primarily because some of the things that took place during that year for me, outside of what we all experienced together in this world, there were some very big transitions during this particular year. I had a medical emergency and was life flighted. I spent 10 weeks on bed rest while I was teaching on Zoom for the final few weeks of our spring semester. There were some things during this year that really, I think, tested my patience in ways that most of us don't come back from. And so I want to share just a few more slides that highlight the resiliency, right? Like the reality that these are examples. These are my seniors from the class of 2020, and we all know what happened that year. They graduated on Zoom. This is one of my seniors, Vinny, who shared his final thesis work. And during that time, we're all excited. We're thumbs upping and cheersing, and let's have our coffee together. And right. So the reality that year was really challenging. And I think this slide and the next couple of slides, I think, are the part of me that I've realized, right? The importance of documenting what we're doing and looking back. So in the fall of 2020, we were back in person. We taught in person that fall semester with a lot of protocols and practices in place, obviously masking, obviously social distancing, but some of my best work as an educator, as a mentor to students, some of the best work that I have ever had the opportunity to create was created during that fall semester. And so, like, Diane, don't make me cry. This semester, we were invited to participate in publishing a book, and I got to the East Broad Top Railroad with these three students, Ashley, Tatum, and Haley, and I quickly realized I've worked in publishing. We can't publish a book if the content is not written, if all of the photos and images aren't ready. And so that fall semester, I said to the students, look at this local history. Look at all of this amazing visual content, right? So from this image, this is Josh. He was there working and volunteering that day. The students started capturing images. We were there with a history class. So a colleague of mine, Jim Tootin, who's a professor in history, his students were working on the writing, and he recruited students from geology and art history and all of these different backgrounds at our small liberal arts college to do the writing. And then I had this team of students that was interested in doing the design, but I think was more interested because of their own passions in doing the video. And so jump ahead towards the end of that year, Tatum was also producing a thesis film. And I'm happy to share links of all of this stuff. If any, I know we're jumping through a lot of really cool stuff and you might want to see it later. So I will share links. But Tatum was producing a very personal story called Color Me In. It was a thesis project that really, it started out as a passion project. And we did tie-dye shirts on campus and everyone got to color in their own colors. But then Tatum ended up coming in. I purchased a home that year. So in the spring of that year, I purchased a home in the spring of 21. And so during the process of Tatum working on this project and starting to develop the work, I had a lot of transition in my life and also was supporting my students to create spaces that we didn't have access to on campus at the time. The image on the right is Ashley Purvis decided to produce a novel, a short novel, and did the illustrations and the layout. She was also one of the students on this project. And so to look back at this now and think about all of the things that we were all going through at that time and the reality, how did we do this work? I'm still asking myself that question. I also was publishing. Wow. So I was working with a colleague who I met through Zoom, through one of the many AIGA design educators groups, which talk about community. That was one of the most important parts of community that I experienced during the 2020 and 21 academic year. And so we published an article about ungrading and the importance of really opening our classrooms to all types of learners
Mm.
and not to be evaluating with letter grades, and how important and impactful it's been for us to do this. I also started doing research with a colleague of mine here at Juniata, Hannah Belwar, and she was mentoring some of my thesis students that were on the former slides. And I was co-mentoring some of her students that were doing writing. We ended up presenting this work at several other institutions and at different conferences nationally.
Mm.
And this, right, like this concept of campus community, public community, the intentionality that we created to collaborate, right? We have no expectation to work together in this capacity. But my colleague Jim Tooten and I, right, have done all of these cool things because we've chosen to create that space for our students.
Mm.
Then I had to apply for tenure again, right? So at this point, I had gone through the 3-year review. My 6-year review was in 2022. Um, Lots of work, lots of documentation. Also, lots of additional publishing, lots of additional presenting at conferences. I started at this time not only talking about ungrading, but talking about dialogues on motherhood and the reality of how stressful it is to be a mother in an academic setting, how hard it is to be a mother, a single mother in many places, right? Like the work environment that we all work and live in, is a constant give and take of what am I missing today so that I can
Mm.
mother, or what am I missing tomorrow so that I can keep my job.
Mm.
And so I spent a good amount of time during 22 focusing on grind culture, this concept of how do we teach our students not to fall into grind culture? How do we not stay in grind culture because it does exist? Um, and then Mina's going to kill me for sharing this photo, but it's so good. So that year, Mina and a handful of us had talked throughout some Zoom sessions about we really want to talk about grind culture. And we ended up being accepted. Kay Farley had submitted the proposal and said, hey, sent out a message on Slack and said, who wants to participate? I'm like, this is a calling from the universe. I am in the midst of a lot of grind culture in all the aspects of my life, and I would really like the opportunity to have a conversation. And so this was October of 22. Jump ahead. I'm going to skip a whole bunch of stuff because these are highlights. So I'm only sharing this highlight reel, but the letterpress is now moved. I moved the letterpress into my home. Not the intention that I had originally. I really wanted this to live and exist in a public space, but I had this space and it had the room and it's a concrete floor and all of the amenities for me to make this work were there. And so these are my children. Um, this slide is like really to me, it's such an important piece. Um, I told myself I wouldn't cry today, but
It's okay. It's a safe place.
yes. So the reason that this is so good is this. So this letterpress sat vacant. You all saw the slides from 2016 to 2022. And I think part of me felt guilty, right?
Mm.
The patience part. I felt guilty. I have this press, it needs to be used. I want to do all of these things. How do I make all of these things happen? And I really had struggled to identify what does this need to look like? And this is not what I thought it would look like. But in reality, the day that Charlie and I made the first impression, and after many years of working with local welders and people on the internet that were sharing information with me, and driving to see John Barton to pick up letterpress stuff, and teaching my son how to measure and teaching my daughter how to play. The great thing that came out of this particular time was these voices at this conversation really inspired me to stop worrying about all of the things that we all worry about and to start focusing on the things that brought joy.
Mm.
And so that's why I love this photo. And Mina, I'm sorry, but I shared it. Um, And this, I don't have this in the slides, but the poster that my daughter's holding, we entered that into an international competition, and several of the prints that we made were accepted into the Kells Type Trail in Ireland.
Oh,
And
cool.
so some really cool stuff came out of those first couple of months of us working together, of me spending dedicated time in the studio space that was in my home, right? Like merging these separate communities that I had into one space. And then, Charlie, the reason that I shared this slide, the excitement and joy of sharing the things that we're passionate about with those around us. And in this particular slide, it's my son. But in many circumstances, it is the community that I live in, and it is my campus community. But he won the first place ribbon at the Huntington County Fair, and they sent him a check. I think it was for $15. And you would think, Diane, right? The excitement for weeks. I mean, he still talks about it when people come to the studio to see the press. That's the first thing he wants to share.
That's
And
so
so
cool.
I think that on top of finding out later that spring that I did in fact receive tenure, right? So um, from here, and I talked about the patience piece.
Mhm.
This was submitted in June of 22. I did not get this letter until April of the following year.
Mhm.
And I think, there's a lot that goes into this, our ability to pause and
Mm.
wait and do other things that keep us distracted, but still excited. And so I got my letter. I was recommended 4 out of 4 faculty that were on the review committee. Um, I was looking back when I was making these slides and thinking about the reality that the year that I was interviewing for my position, my daughter would frequently fall asleep and I would frequently have my laptop, and I was very pregnant at the time, right? And jump ahead to now that I have a 5 and 10-year-old as of this year, soon to be 6 and 11. And our life looks very different than it did back in 2018, but we're doing a lot of really fun and important and passionate work. Um, and so this past fall, and I'm almost through all of my slides, I promise. This past fall, we, um, during the AIGA conference, I had a discussion with a friend turned mentor that was at the AIGA conference, and they had said to me, Ryan, you're making work. Why are you not contacting galleries? You go to these galleries and you're inspired by the work at the galleries. Why aren't you calling the galleries and asking, can I show my work? And so I took a leap of faith. I was scared to death to do it, but I reached out to a gallery at Penn State, someone local and close, and said, hey, I'm doing this type of creative work. Are there any openings? Could I show my work? And we had many discussions. We also had a discussion that I would only show work if I could do some workshops. And so this particular slide shows from September to November of last year. We went and did these participatory workshops. I took my children with me because they actually are part of the reason that I am so good at the play part, right? It's the reality that as adults, we're usually reserved about certain things. We don't want to make a mess. We don't want to mess up. We want everything to be perfect. And so this experience was a really important thing for me. This gallery exhibition was titled Under Pressure, and the workshops were about finding creative joy in slow creative practices, printing with objects that are considered trash.
Mm.
And so not only were my children there, my senior research student last year, Katie Mace, was part of this experience. She was doing letterpress research in my home studio, and was also experiencing this joy. And then jump ahead, much of the final work that I made towards the end of 2023 was collaborative. So these are prints that I was making both in my home environment or traveling and visiting friends and colleagues and mentors and making and creating. Many of these prints were first time prints with the folks that I was working with. And so the fun thing for me is making with people that have never had this opportunity and facilitating a space where they have the opportunity to experience the joy that I experience. Um, this was actually an object that was used to make many of these prints. And this object became the cover artwork for the gallery show that is now at the Penn State Wascom Gallery. Um, and then I just want to jump through a few more. So, making on my own was something that I previously just never made the time to do. I would only make the time to do it if there were others that were making at the same time.
Mm.
And so I started this practice of making. And also, fall of 23, we finally published the book. So this is Jim Tootin, my colleague that we went to the East Broad Top in the fall of 2020. Jump ahead 3 years. We have the written content. We finally have a team of students in my practicum class. We designed the book. Later that, so this was spring of 23 that we were finalizing the design layouts. And that went to print, I believe, in August of 2023. And then this is beginning of 2024. My daughter insisted she went with me. We had a 6 a.m. installation.
Whoa.
I don't know any 10-year-old that wants to get up at 6 a.m. for any good
Look how
reason, but
proud she is of you. Her arms
yes,
around you. I love that.
yeah. So much of the work that I created for that show was created in collaboration. The prints on the wall were created with my partner. The work that's hanging and suspended from the ceiling has to do with insomnia. And those of you that are creative and might experience insomnia, it was printed on pillowcases.
Oh, wow.
And is meant to be viewed from the ground. And so I think this slide you can see when you're in the gallery, there's actual stools that you can, or kind of platforms that you can lay down. And I also printed on pillowcases, the actual pillowcases that you could lay on. But yeah, I think the big moral of all of the things that I'm sharing is just this idea of continuing to make and continuing to be patient with the things that you are making. Because 10 years ago, I had no idea, right? My daughter was a year old. I was starting a nonprofit. I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. And just recently, I did just mention this to you, Diane. I was asked to go to Edinburgh University. Penn West has a design program, and I was asked to do a portfolio review. My agreement was I'll come do this part on the left if you'll let me do the part on the right the night before. And so I printed with some of the colleagues, the design colleagues that were there, and many of their students had a great experience, gave a lecture the next day, and then worked to review their portfolios. And it was a really inspiring experience, both for me and I think for the students to get to make some stuff right before they were doing their finals. And so before I end, in the process of me setting up all of these slides, I shared this with Diane as we were checking our internet connection. And I mentioned, I think putting all of our, even a period of your life into a document, whether it's a book, a zine, and Mina talks about the Drawn Daily. I think it's so important for us to do these passion projects. I'm fortunate that I've been asked in the last 2 to 3 weeks to do several of these experiences where I'm either presenting to a public audience or I am working to present something in a campus environment. And so I have had to come to terms with some of these things. Like, what do I know? Why are you all asking me to come and talk? What do I know that is important to share? And so I'll share them quickly. I'll read through them. I'm not going to pause, but I know passion brings the most intense purpose. Find your passion. Life is actually really short. So just say yes, like this reality that we say no all the time.
Mm.
Sometimes it's important just to say yes. Your mental health matters much more than your followers on social media. Nothing changes if nothing changes. This was shared with me recently, but also at a time where I'm going through all of this change, and change is so hard. But to me, these slides show you change is it's worth it. You just have to be patient. Making things with people that you don't know. Many of my most inspiring creations have happened with the least expensive materials in an environment that is not even made to be creating. And so making things with people that you don't know. Get inspired by things that scare you. I was scared to death to do the gallery show. I was scared to participate in many of these public things, but I've done them and I'm still here and I'm talking to you about it. Find ways to create joy in the world. And if you can, make a career out of it. Talk to everyone. This drives everybody nuts that knows me. I do talk to everyone, people at the grocery store. Good things come from conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't forget to play. Don't forget to play. It's so important. It's something that as adults, whether or not you have children, we frequently forget to play. And I think it's a really important part of our creative process. And then last thing, sit in the front row, right? At the conference that I went to last year and the year before, I was so timid. Like, those are seats for someone else. I have started sitting in the front row, and that to me has been such an important transition in my own way of walking into a space. And I think all of us deserve to sit in the front row. I know there's only so many seats, but we deserve it. And so last thing I have is find your patience. And for the students that I have shared with recently, stay for the extra credit. There is this reality that much of life, if you're there and you're patient enough to see it, in some capacity, life shares extra credit, right? These projects that I've gotten a chance to do and collaborate on, they are so enriching to my own work, not only to the work that I'm doing, but to my students and to the local community. That I would argue those are the extra credits of life, right?
Mm-hmm. I like that of just not doing the minimum. Sometimes it's worth doing the extra and making somebody feel so worth it and important
Yes.
to be able to have those conversations or just I mean, I even think how you did that with the students that you were reviewing. You were like, well, I'll review them if you let me do this one thing before.
Yeah.
Because then they
Yes.
had a relationship with you and they were maybe less nervous going in there.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of other things that you've done a ton in 12 years. Holy moly.
Yeah. And I know I shared this with you before. There's so many things that are not even on these slides. These are just the
Right.
ones that I feel like these are those pivotal, important. I didn't think I could accomplish this, and I decided I was going to try, and I did, and it worked. And then it opened the door to the next thing. And the conversation that I had with this person at lunch that I never knew
Mm-hmm.
opened the door to these other things. And so I think the power of community and the power of conversation, um, also the power of asking a lot of questions,
That's what I
right?
was
Like
about to say. Being curious. And
yeah,
because
ask the questions.
you learned so much about the garden or having the press, things you didn't know. You didn't feel pressured to get it done in 2016.
Yeah,
But you said, okay, I'm going to keep it. I'm still going to make this investment, even though if I can't, but it was that you brought people in. You weren't afraid to ask questions. You're not afraid to
yeah,
sit in the front row. You're able to focusing in. Jesse says, I resonated so much with this. Thank you. So I agree. This was
yes,
awesome. It was a lot of
yeah.
eye candy for sure. And,
Well, that's what we do. We got to run with the visuals, right?
but it is really nice as I was thinking about the things that were the, the, the thin red line that goes through all of it. I definitely
Yeah,
said asking questions. And I love the fact that you're willing to go in instead of saying, I've got to do this. You actually brought your family with you instead of
yeah,
saying, I've got to go. Like you went all in and you bring them along for the ride. So,
yeah. Yes. I think a lot of our discussion at the grind culture, that panel, which unfortunately was not recorded, but we did later get back together. We've got the band back together and we recorded on Zoom maybe a year later. That discussion really was inspiring to me as a mother, right? Mina had talked about seeing faculty bringing their children and realizing, okay, it's okay for me to do this. And the reality that many of us work in environments or have worked in environments that don't have that atmosphere. And in certain situations, and Diane, I've disclosed to you that I was a late ADHD. I did not know I had ADHD until I was nearly 40. And right, like learning that we are in environments with people like us and
Mm-hmm.
having conversations and saying, are there other mothers here? Are there other neurodivergent folks in this room that I can say, like, do you understand what we're doing? And I think learning to have those conversations and learning to ask questions is so important.
For sure.
It's uncomfortable and it's part of, for me anyway, for a lot of my life, I think would kind of follow the lead of the loudest voice in the room. And I've now realized that I can also be a voice in the room, right? And I think everybody finding your voice and finding the things that you're passionate about and sharing them with other people.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it has been a huge, really what keeps me going, right? It's the inspiration of doing work with other people. The gallery had asked me, the Penn State Wascop Gallery had asked me to focus the work on mental health. And immediately I was just thinking, this is a really hard time as a designer to talk about mental health, right? We design with words and visuals, and I kept thinking, how am I filling this two-story gallery space with words and visuals focused on mental health? And then I paused, right? The radio station went out of
Mm-hmm.
range. I had a week or two where I was like, I am not pulling this off. Um, and then I remembered play. And I remembered those things that I started doing in 2013, 2014, the community. And I started making with others. And I realized this sense of joy. Um, and right, all of those things. The gallery didn't have to be text and images. That's traditionally how I would choose to design, but it didn't have to be that. And I think sometimes just our ability to be patient
Mm.
is really the most important thing that we can give. That's the grace that we give ourselves, is just pausing and reevaluating and coming back and having conversations and coming back. And I don't know about you all, but I have sheets of paper everywhere. To the outside world, my life looks very chaotic, but that's how I remember things and how I bring them all back together.
You're with your people, promise.
Yes,
There,
yeah,
there is
yeah.
a lot of
All
mess.
all my post-it notes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have piles on the two little spots on your computer, that I think are supposed to be for
Yes,
something else. That's where I think
yeah,
they intended post-it notes because it's the perfect size for the
yeah. That's
three
where
by
they go.
three square. I want
Yeah,
everybody to be able to connect with you. And I just thank you so much, Ryan. This was awesome. And it's very
Diane.
inspiring to me to think, okay, what can I do instead of being scared, or what can I do in my community? How can I make something better? um, you know, where else could I share or give, or what do I need to be making? How do I need to use my time? It's like the sitting in the front row instead of you
Yeah,
use it, you use those things. It's like, nope, I need to use those things,
yeah,
or I need to be doing some making. So maybe there's some
yeah.
ways that resonates with some other people too. But I want to make sure everybody can connect with you and all these things. If you're listening on wherever you get your podcast, it's right at the top. Her links are right at the top, and then the show
Yeah.
links are right underneath that. And
And
it is.
then
You go ahead and
I
say
can
it, but just
also,
spell
I
it
was
for
just,
everybody
yeah,
if you don't mind.
yeah. So my name is Ryan Kough. Some people think it's Kough, but I have provided Diana with links. And then I also, because I'm sure some of you that are joining today are designers, I will also share the typefaces that I used for the slides. But if you'd like to get in touch, my email is just hello@ryankough.com, RYANKOUGH. You can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. I would be happy to connect with you all. I love the power of community, so please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I
Yeah.
so appreciate it. On Instagram, she's Ryan, RYAN dot KOUGH, just so you know.
Yep.
So everywhere else, it's just Ryan KOUGH
Yep.
.com. But anyway, I just want to make sure everybody knows. But thank you. Cannot thank you enough. My brain is just going. I want to ask you one last question. Do you
Yeah.
think this is not on the sheet? Have you
Yeah.
always been reflective? So in second grade, your teacher said that you were a daydreamer, but that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that you were a reflective. You were just thinking and
Yeah.
imaginative. Was being, because with ADHD, reflection is not easy for me. And I think
Yeah.
it's because it's uncomfortable, but I don't know. Is that something that's easy for you?
I think I've always been an observer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a middle child. I have an older sister and a younger sister, so I've always observed everything. And when I started doing the research on community engaged learning and designated my classes on local engagement and community engaged learning, the best practices to teach the way that I teach is a lot of reflection. And so I think, the research that I was doing, plus the work that I was doing in the community, all of those things, all of the stars aligning at the same time. Yes, I don't know that I was reflective growing up or even in my own college years, but I think as a mother, as an educator, as someone that really focuses on these reciprocal and sustainable partnerships, it's part of the best practices of what we do in education, and also on grading, right? So the way that I evaluate my students through alternative forms of assessment, there's a lot of reflection that goes into that. And right, me evaluating students not on the design that they're making, but what was their experience and how did they engage in the process? It's such an important part because I don't necessarily need to know that Illustrator stopped working and you couldn't install the most recent update. I need to know, how are you coming to the final discussion with what you hope to implement? And how can you talk about it not in a negative way, but in, these are the challenges that I faced, and here is how I plan to overcome.
Mm.
So that's been a really important part.
Well, and I love that you're thinking about other people, even in the hello baby thing. Like, is my baby
Yeah,
making markers? Like hitting these things. If I don't have the app, how would I? So I
yeah,
think that's
yeah,
it's you have a very community focused head and heart, and I just love that. And Paul says, I
yeah,
find that reflection is where the real design strength comes from. Kudos to sharing this point. I agree. I think that, I mean,
yeah,
your research is like from the beginning, you're like the data, you're coming in, people are having conversations, and it just
yeah,
helps us who are in those situations maybe to take time after to write down some of those things, or if you record it, to go
yeah,
back through the transcript or something. So
yeah.
anyway, super inspiring for me. Thank you so much, and thank you
Thank
all for
you.
being here. And next week we're taking off, but then on the 22nd, I believe, and that's Marius will be there for that. So Marius, I'm glad you're here. You get a cheat to see what we're gonna be. You have to follow this, Marius. So I will be glad to see all of y'all. And Joey, it's good to see you. I'm glad your son graduated from, I don't know, from boot camp or from whatever, but he looks awesome and he was doing awesome. It's great to see everybody on social media too. I appreciate it. And Jeremy, I swear I wrote it on my thing. You're now on my thing again. I have it. I know who I keep. It's because you both come in as blue. I don't know why. Maybe that's it. But his last name starts with a K also. So anyway, I'm gonna be it. It's gonna be. I'm gonna get it one day. Ryan, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
I'm gonna hit stop, and I'll see y'all next time.